I walked in I think I like literally sat down, and then Garcelle said, that's your privilege. And then I
Right.
think my face was like, what? Just I had no context prior, but I was like, what is happening? But I mean, look, I went through it, and I go through it, more
Yeah.
often than I would like to go through it, conscious and unconscious biases towards me, and so I know exactly how Garcelle felt, and I know I can see that the audience is mixed how they feel about it, but like until you experience it, like and also I think you can give people passes for isolated situations.
Right.
But I think in Garcelle's situation, it was built up.
A build up. Yeah. There was multiple moments. Yeah, for sure.
I want to gab.
Okay, today we're gabbing with Kung Minkoff, who's in her third season of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which is in the midst of another landmark season. Crystal and I have done an interview for each of her seasons on the show, and I'm so excited to be getting time with her once again. There's so much to love about her and her family and what she brings to the show. Crystal, I'm really happy to have some time with you. How are you? Happy New Year. How's it going?
And Happy New Year. Everything's going really well. It's beautiful out in LA, so can't complain.
Good. What's your mindset right now? I mean, we're recording this on the 3rd of January, and it's been a couple weeks since the show has even aired, but we're in the middle of the season. So where's your mind at right now?
Well, I've had a very low-key first half of the season, but I also knew that because I was there. So I'm sort of bracing myself for a second half, in which it's a lot less low-key for me. But nonetheless, still big smile on my face, and I feel comparatively to the last 2 years, really good.
Good. So it's less low key for you,
Yeah.
meaning that you have more sort of interpersonal conflict that we're going to see, or
I have
what
a
do you
lot
mean
of
by
drama.
that?
I have a
A lot
lot
of
of drama
drama.
coming up. Yeah, but that's okay. It's gonna, my thing is like, I'll speak when I feel really strongly about something. I'm
Yeah.
also not someone that like needs to hear myself say, like many of the women, but I now see that that's like can be hard because you can't be in my head. You can't hear my thoughts. Only I can. So I see that like, that's maybe like something I need to do better at is, saying how I feel. But when I'm passionate about something, it's hard to like hold back. So
Good. Okay. So you're going to voice something about something somebody else says or does potentially. Okay. Okay.
yeah, and
Okay.
I just feel like defensive of some people, and just I always think of myself as someone who's on the right side of history and stands
Okay.
up for things, and that's just who I am. Because at the end of the day, when all this is over, you have to go to bed at night. You have to put your head down the pillow and say, like, am I an honest person? Am I a good person? And that's really the most important thing for me. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, and I would agree with that on the right side of history comment. I was going to bring this up later, but I think you just kind of alluded to it. You did a great long sit down with Nick Viall on his podcast, and at the very beginning, he was like, he called you the quiet housewife, and you said that was something you wear with a badge of honor. And I don't know if I would necessarily say like you're the quiet housewife. I feel like you pick your moments really well, and I feel like you insert your opinion on things when the time is right. I think as we just discussed, is that just what you meant by that? Like, is it? Or has it been I don't know, has it been a difficult learning curve to sort of know when those right times are? Because it's being on TV is a little bit different than just going to dinner with friends off camera, right?
That's exactly it, is that, when you're amongst like, off camera with your friends, there's, I'm having a conversation with my friends and I feel like someone has said something that I already feel, or, it's like, okay, I'm just more quiet, and and so when you film a show like this, you can feel energetically people are trying to get their moments. I'm not someone who does that. I just feel like if I have a moment, it's just natural.
It's
It's
going to
how I
present
feel.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not ever looking for one. But I also see that is sometimes a challenge for the show. So that's my learning
Yeah.
curve. And but like I said, second half is really where if I feel passionate about something, or
Yeah.
it's just a natural, that I have to say something, I will.
Right. So, it seems like you kind of more react in the moment to something that comes up, but do you ever go into like a filming a scene or a dinner or just a hangout where like you're like, I need to ask that person about that one thing and like just find a way to get to that?
Yeah. When I
Yeah.
really have a question or something doesn't add up for me, of course I find my moment in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
When
totally.
it's banter or when it's just arguing to argue sake, like I just find
No
that,
interest. Yeah.
honestly, it's not.
Right, right.
And
Um,
it is for some, and I think it's entertaining
yeah,
and it's fun, but you know, uh it has to be authentic to me.
of
So
course. Yeah. Early on, Crystal, I feel like it was hard to not recognize that like you weren't getting as much airtime as some of the other people on the show. And I think that's something you've maybe commented on, maybe like on Instagram or something. I forget where I saw you address that, but it was clear that like, and that's obviously a factor of being on an ensemble show is like some people get more airtime at different points, but it felt like kind of especially apparent, I feel like in those first couple episodes. Why do you think that was, or like what was your reaction to watching some of those early episodes? Because I think that now it feels a little different, but it was just those, it felt like we weren't seeing you enough in those first
yeah.
couple episodes.
I can't like blame the edit
Right.
or anything
No.
like that. Like I'm just like I said, I'm just a little more quiet than the rest of the crew. And so there's only 40 minutes
Yeah.
per week that, that there's, and if someone else is really going in there, then of course that they're going to show that. I also didn't really have much conflict in the beginning. And so that's just
Yeah. The nature of the show.
yeah, nature of the show. But no, I don't think I can't, it's not the edit. I think I'm just quieter. That's all.
Okay. That's totally
But
fair.
like I said, second half, other
Yeah.
people much more quiet. So maybe they're just, you can't have everyone have,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah, it's
roller
an up and
coaster.
down. Yeah, it's a roller coaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a moment on a recent after show episode where everyone's sort of discussing the comment that Dorit made about Sutton pouring vodka in her coffee, and then you told Sutton about the comment. And I thought what was really interesting about that setup was that you are paired with Dorit in the after show, so you were kind of it was kind of like a mini reunion moment where you had to kind of address it head on with each other. What was that
Yeah.
like to film that little moment? Because again, it was sort of just a mini reunion, and you had to explain it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Because when I went into the after show, like, you don't know what you're going to talk about. Like, they ask you everything. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really like something that I felt like that was combative. I just was very clear that that happened. Um, but as you watch, when you were at taco night, when she said it again to me, and I kind of was like, let me get this clear. I actually started getting confused because you don't see her relentlessly saying she doesn't say it and they made it up. So by that time, it might have been the sixth, seventh, eighth time that she said she never
Wow.
said it. So then I started to question myself, like, because I don't get to watch back.
Of
That
course.
conversation at Kyle's house was far longer than the 3 minutes they showed. So it was one of many comments. So I just brought that one up. I was like, that kind of hit me. But by the eighth, ninth time, I'm like, did she like I started, and I don't want to be someone that, I take pride in being honest and
Yeah.
direct and being really clear about things. So I kind of felt gaslit. I was like, what is happening here? Of course, when you go to the after show, it's by that time it's pretty clear that what I said was,
True.
exactly true. So when it happened, she was saying it, I did feel like she was slightly backing up in that moment, as opposed to like when we're actually filming. She was like, I didn't say that. Why is Crystal stirring the pot? I'm like, I literally told her once.
Hmm.
And then if you don't like, you could have just said, look, I said it and that's how I feel, or I said it and I'm sorry. But she just kept turning it onto me, and trying to deflect what she actually said. And what they say, don't kill the messenger.
Right.
Like you can
Exactly.
try to keep shooting at me, but
You're not gonna hit it. But so
I don't,
do you feel like you two squashed that in that moment
like
being
I don't
together?
feel like that was beef. It was
It
just
wasn't no, it wasn't beef, but I feel like she was sort of holding it against you that you repeated it, even though she did
yeah.
say it, and you repeated it verbatim, basically.
I don't know if it's squash. I mean,
Okay.
so bad I said
It was a
it.
little
She's
right.
pissed. Yeah, if she's still pissed, then she's pissed. I mean, uh,
Yeah.
I'm not going to change how I feel about it. So,
Right.
and she said it, and it was very clear she said it. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
I'm curious what you think of Sutton's sort of not strategy, that's the wrong word, but her thing this season of repeating the same phrase over and over again. It's happened twice this season. What do you make of that as a good friend of hers?
Yeah, well, when she says name them, obviously we were not there, only Kyle was there.
Hmm.
So when she did the second one, it wasn't apparent to me in time.
Yeah.
But no, you know what? I wasn't there. I wasn't in the room.
Right. Yeah, you weren't because you guys heard
I
the
was
yelling
there.
from the
So I
kitchen. Right.
actually, yeah, I've never seen any of that in real
Okay.
time. I only saw it on the show. So obviously, as like watching it and being separated from those moments, I wasn't there. As a fan of a show, as a watcher, you can be like, "Oh, that's hysterical."
Right.
Do I think they were planned? No, I don't.
No,
But
no, it's just something she's fallen back on a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I actually never, yeah, I never saw them in real life.
I
So
I have this theory that Sutton and Kyle sort of fight like sisters. Do you agree with that?
yeah, and I think I've actually said that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they seem to have a very uh yeah, like sibling type of relationship in that, there's a safety weird. It's like I would say it's like with Jeff, my brother, like we fight so hard because I know we're okay,
Right. You'll come out on the other side.
yeah. So like I think about my first and second seasons of like arguing with people, like I didn't feel comfortable or safe. So I also hold back, or it's like, or I'm, jumpy in how but like with my brother or anyone really close, like you just go head on because I know that it will be okay later. So
Hmm.
maybe that's why they fight. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if they're okay right now though, I have to say,
No,
but
yeah, it seems like there's
yeah.
a big distance. Obviously your Taco Tuesday event has been a doozy. We've already alluded to it. I mean, like we got it to be continued in the middle of that whole thing. And Dorit has really been in the hot seat of at least that the first part that we've seen. What did you make of? I don't know if you were in the room for that, but you've definitely seen it on TV of her and Garcelle's interaction. I feel like they've had these sort of little interactions over the past couple seasons, where Garcelle essentially called her out for what I think was basically a microaggression of saying that Dorit said she was attacking her. What did you
Yeah.
make of that moment and sort of that conversation?
I walked in as I think I like literally sat down and then Garcelle said, that's your privilege. And then I
Right.
think my face was like, what just I had no context prior, but I was like, what is happening? Um, so, but I mean, look, I went through it and I go through it, more
Yeah.
often than I would like to go through it of you know, conscious and unconscious biases towards me, and so I know exactly how Garcelle felt, and I know I can see that the audience is mixed how they feel about it, but like until you experience it, like and also I think it's you can give people passes for isolated situations.
Right.
Oh, but I think in Garcelle's situation, it was built up.
A build up. Yeah, there was multiple moments. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. For
yeah.
sure. The other big sort of moment in your Taco Tuesday sit down was Erica and Denise. And
Oh, I was there for that.
yeah, you were there for that. And to me, it's this. I don't want to be unfair to Denise, but it kind of feels like an uneven matchup. Like Erica is so, I mean, she's such a seasoned pro of the housewife, and she's proven over the years that she's down to just kind of cut to the bone and go for the jugular, right? What did you make of having a front row seat to that matchup? And do you agree that it's sort of uneven?
Yeah, I don't think it's even, but that's not saying bad to either
Oh
person,
no, no, definitely not. Definitely
Yeah, yeah,
not.
yeah, that's not bad. It's just it felt like they fight so differently.
Hmm.
They argue so differently. Their perspectives are so different. So I think that a matchup like that would inherently look like it did. I was just in shock because for months, Erica had been very low key. And you don't see much of this, but it was Garcelle actually kept saying, like, God, you're so different. You're so
Hmm.
different. And she's like, I'm not going there. And like, okay. So then I was like, whoa, like that was the Erica that I actually felt like I knew more of. Um, but at the same time, I think I think Denise could have been clearer. And but again,
I
I
agree.
wasn't there. I have based on what I've seen from old seasons, I assumed it was not about that table conversation. It was about what happened with her and Brandy. And I said that at the after show.
Hmm.
But that's just as a viewer. So I
Yeah.
felt, and I think people understand this. When you're fighting, someone, you actually are fighting about something else,
Totally. Yeah, you
right?
use something as an excuse to get into it, basically.
Yes, yes. Like your anger or your whatever it is inside you is actually fueled by something, sometimes, not always, but and it's like hard to go there because maybe it's too painful. You want to go. So I think that that's what it was. I think there's other things internal to her but that was what she used. And I think Erica knew that, but Erica
Yeah.
wasn't going to let her up.
Totally. Well, it's like, well, you're when you're on TV like this, you have to be clear about what you're actually arguing
Yeah.
about, or at least present your case in a clear and concise way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
But that's
so,
something that I've learned the hard way
yeah, of
too,
course.
and because when you're not on TV, it can come out sideways but you're still getting out what you want. But on
Yeah.
TV, it's a totally different thing because as an audience, you get perspective based on seeing what's happened in the past. So
Hmm.
you can apply those things where in real life you can't.
Yeah. Is
So it's
there
just
is
fascinating.
Yeah,
Like,
is there a moment from your past two seasons that you felt like you weren't able to present yourself in the right way? Like what's a big moment that stands out to you like that? Not to
um,
rehash it. I'm just curious if something
no,
sticks
it's
out.
not rehashing. I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh God, like I don't want you to
Yeah.
become what you think. But I think, explaining um my body stuff, my eating
Yeah.
disorder
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff, and how the girls approached it. I think, and still to this day, I feel like it's such a sensitive topic for me, and it's so close to me that when people are seemingly flippant about it or judgy, I it's not something I want to fight about. It's not a
Mm,
fight. I already fight every day with myself. So I don't want to fight them. But I look back and it's like, if I could stand up for myself in a different way, in a more clear, concise way, I would have.
yeah.
Because it does sort of, it sort of, it's the reason why I am the way I am in
Mm,
so many ways. And so I think if I could have explained that better,
right.
this year I think I am better about it. But yeah, because when it's so real, it's a little
It's
bit
hard to find the words sometimes when it's that kind of entrenched in you, right?
hard.
Totally. So Crystal, I'm glad you got the opportunity to clear up that whole thing of the side with the Guerdy and disinviting her from the thing. I'm glad you got the opportunity to talk about that and watch up and live because I was at this like Art Basel event thing with her. It was like with Meta, and she brought it up, and it was before you addressed it. And I guess my just only follow up question on that is, have you two spoken since you cleared it up publicly and just buried the hatchet? Because it felt like more of a misunderstanding, I guess.
Well, I was surprised that she had said that because it's funny, like we were together at Kathy's taking photos and people were like posting them and like, we were just together. And
Hmm.
then I started getting messages that like Guerdy was I think this is what I really think what happened. Guerdy was fine when we talked about it. And I was really clear because I said to her, and I actually said this to Larsa, I said, had Guerdy I started this kind of little cocktail party with Guerdy, Larsa, you would have been disinvited. She's okay, I get that. And I said, but Larsa lives on it all just started because Larsa lives down the street from me on my
Yeah.
street. So it was like, why don't you pop by? And then she then said, oh, blah, blah, blah is in town. Can she come? And I was like, oh, okay. Then I invited like 4 or 5 people in Bravo and then their spouses. And so when it happened, I think Gertie, she said, like, I can be in, I'm okay. And I'm like, look, it's just like, I met everybody once, and with the spirit of this, why don't we hang out at Kathy's? And she seemed fine.
Mm,
I think probably post that, she started to get more upset.
mm. Yeah. She
That's
kind of
why.
she
Yeah.
sat in it. Yeah,
She
she sat
sat
in
in
it.
it. And I think that's what happened
Mm,
because our texts were lovely and we were
hmm.
hanging out. And so I actually texted her. I said, I'm getting these messages and can you just explain what's going on? And she definitely did not get mad at me in the text. She said, I'm sorry that Larsa put you through this. And I said, Larsa did not put me through
She
this.
didn't make it public, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I just said, at the end of the day, like I said earlier on this call, I said, we have to go to bed knowing that like we're being honest and direct. And I just said, like I just wish you well. And, I just hope that, everything's fine. She's like, she wrote, you're the sweetest, heart, all this love stuff. Um, Again, I
Okay.
met her once and, I was like, I wasn't gonna really get into I don't know these people enough to get
Yeah.
into any of it. But I have to say, Larsa did not make this public at
Right.
all.
Yeah. We wouldn't have known about it. Right.
Yeah, of
Exactly.
course.
Yeah.
Oh, she
Yeah.
said, "Oh, someone asked me about a party, and I thought it was they were talking about yours." I said, "You did?" Like, and they were talking about Kathy's party. I'm like, "Well, I would assumed it was Kathy's party because why would they
That was the
know?"
big one we all knew about. Right. We saw one
Yeah.
photo from your
Yes.
gathering. Yeah.
No, it's
Exactly.
fine. Look, people get upset and people again, things come out sideways of people
Yeah.
as opposed to saying like, this is really upsetting for me. And I would have maybe, I don't know what I would have done differently, but I genuinely didn't know what was going on with them
Yeah.
until the day before because your social media starts pushing things and I'm like, whoa, I'm like I think they really hate each other.
Right. Yeah. It's not good between them. But again, how would you have known? And two, like, I think that
Yeah.
your perspective on it makes complete sense to me after you've explained it. So
Yeah, but thank
yeah.
you. But you know what? I actually still think Gertie's lovely, and I think
Yeah.
Larsa
She
was.
is.
I
Yeah.
just want, I think again, I ended up sort of becoming slightly collateral between the two of them, and not to say that I don't have my part in. I mean, this was my house and stuff like that, but I think the emotions has been so clearly high between that. Like anything that was like to get back at each other.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like
Totally.
between. So I don't even
Yeah,
think
I think it.
not
Yeah,
true.
yeah, we could move on from it, but I feel like
Yeah,
you've
yeah, it's like
yeah.
not my life.
Um, I mentioned your sit down with Nick Vile, which I thought was really a great watch and a great listen. There was I thought found a comment that you made on that pretty interesting, where you talked about how like you like to film stuff and then just sort of leave it and not bring it and not keep talking about it, not keep dragging it through the media. Like it's kind of like let's film it, let's have it be on the show, and that kind of be it. Um, has there been anything that has been hard to treat in that way? Like something that you were
Yeah.
like, oh, like I kind of want to drag this out and like kind of keep addressing it.
That more my first two seasons. Um, Not this year much. Also, you know what? Because I've gone through two full cycles of the
Yeah.
show. So I understand that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what it's like. It doesn't matter unless something was like crazy in my life. I don't know, but um that the audience comes full circle anyway to they're going to feel however they feel about you.
Hmm.
They're going to see whatever they want to see. It's sort of the like two opponents. Some people are going to be team Erica, somebody team Denise. It doesn't really matter as long as
Yeah.
you're both being honest and you're both being who you are. As long I notice that like when I get like weird negativity, if it's how I feel, it doesn't bother me. That's like
Right.
my circle. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to be honest and it actually is irrelevant.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't like, I just don't want to live in that. Like it can be toxic while filming. So like, I'm too busy and I have too many things to worry about, like my kids to like, and the first 2 years I spent way too much time in rabbit holes and feeling bad about
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, it doesn't serve me.
No, no, it doesn't. I don't think it serves any. I don't think it serves anybody to be too in the weeds with anything like that.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Because
yeah,
it's like no one else knows I'm suffering except myself. So why suffer, So I just do it. And, it's
yeah,
not like I'm perfect. I certainly,
of course
look,
not. We
feel
all,
things
yeah,
when I rewatch it. But I've been much better. Like
yeah, good.
yeah.
Good. Well, it's just now occurring to me, Crystal, that you joined Beverly Hills at a pretty crazy juncture. It was the Erica of it all season. Last year was the Aspen of it all season, and this year it's this whole. I mean, there's a lot going on this season, so you kind of joined the show where there's sort of like this extra spotlight on everything too, right? It's like the eyeballs have never been a bigger on the show you're on, which
Yeah.
is and that's a tough. It's a tough time to
I
join
will
the
say,
show.
like, I remember some of the girls who had been on for a while, they would say to me, like, it's like almost unfair, like, the when you joined. Like
Hmm.
it's been really, and I also joined, I got my first call from a casting person 2 weeks after lockdown in March 2020. So I
Wow.
also like joined the show during peak COVID,
God.
during the BLM movement, during anti-Asian. It was like, and then this was all happening with Erica. And so, I mean, it was a lot. And here I am, plucked out of, nowhere and asked to do this show. So it was a lot of learning curve for me. But I think if I had been plucked in done it today, I still would have struggled.
I
Not to
mean, of
say,
course, it's
like,
just
I don't think I would have been like, oh, that was much easier now.
certainly not. Certainly not. It feels like now that I'm thinking about the stack of things that you had to address and deal with has been pretty high and pretty weighty.
Yeah.
Um, Another comment that I saw make a headline relatively recently was you were on Sheena's podcast and you said that Rena's not here and you didn't know until she wasn't on the show what kind of impact she was having on you. Like until she was gone,
Yeah.
you weren't aware of that impact. What did you mean by that?
You know, every person that comes in changes the dynamic. And so I walked in, that's all I knew. I knew it was like, I felt like it was a lot of
Right.
OGs that I started with. And then even Kathy, who's brand new with me, um, she felt very connected to the show already, where I wasn't. I was truly like the newbie. Um, but I think knowing now my third year, being into it, how different I am than year one, how different I would be if I was in year, I think Rena was 7 or 8. Just sort of how they navigate the show and navigate everyone that comes in and their
Hmm.
old friends. So when you pluck someone out like that, who's so connected to the show and really changes it. Like, so I think that would have felt that way with anybody. Like,
Hmm.
someone like Diana who's new, who I knew before, her leaving is different because she was newer than me.
Right.
But
Right.
someone who's
Totally.
been around for so long, like an OG, like Rena.
She was setting the vibe kind of for the whole
Yeah, they
cast. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Totally.
I don't set the vibe, they do.
Mm, mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the season that's obviously focused on Kyle and Mauricio and her friendship with Morgan Wade and all of that. And, you know, one thing you said on Nick's was like that you think that playing with marriages and bringing that up can be a dangerous game. It can be kind of a slippery slope. But when, in Kyle's case at least, it's making so many headlines outside of the show and outside of filming, that's a difficult thing to not bring up. I'm guessing
Yeah.
it must feel like an elephant in the room. And it felt like in that moment at the dinner party, at the weed dinner party, when Sutton was like being kind of vague about what's going on with your marriage, is there something you want to tell us? It felt like she wasn't being specific in the same way she was being specific about the Erica stuff a couple seasons ago. You know what I mean? What
Well,
do
I
you
think
make of
also
how? Yeah,
because you're right. I'm assuming because the Erica stuff is stuff that's factual and filed.
right.
Factual meaning like the
There are
what's happening.
numbers. It's in an
Yeah.
article. Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Where Kyle's stuff is pure speculation, right?
Hmm.
There's not going to be numbers attached to that unless there's a divorce, like
Hmm.
filed. So I think that's where it's different. I don't know. I mean, of course, clearly has been talking about her relationship and, obviously fast forward to today where they are in their marriage. Um, but, I just maybe it's just inherently just culture who I am. Like marriage is very sacred and like
Yeah.
that's not to be toyed with unless there is something. I don't know. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. No, you're in a tough spot even having to be asked about it. I totally recognize
And I
that.
also am one of the few married with young children on the show.
Right.
You know what I
Totally.
mean? So I like, I just wouldn't go there. It's just not,
Well, I also think you've done
there's something more factual, I
yeah.
guess.
Conversely, I think you've done a really excellent job of protecting your marriage and your kids and your family from being the subject of anything. And so I think that kudos to you for that, because that's, again, as we've seen, that's not easy to do, I feel like. So,
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing though, fast forwarding to today again, I mean, a lot of people say where there's smoke, there's fire, right? So like, it wasn't
mm,
like, Sutton was wrong,
right. Totally. No, it
you know?
wasn't out of left field necessarily, but
Yeah.
yeah, right. So Crystal, obviously you said you're in the thick of it for the rest of the season, as again, we don't know exactly how, but when you're thinking about the reunion, which I'm assuming isn't that far off, are there things maybe not even to have to deal with the second half of the season that like you've seen in other people's scenes or in other people's confessionals that are sort of top of your list to bring up or address?
It's funny. I was actually talking with Rob, my sacred yesterday about it because someone asked me, "Oh, are you getting prepared for the reunion?" And I was like, "Oh God, Rob, I have to like focus." And he's like,
Uh-huh.
"Don't do that." Like
It's good
he's like,
advice.
"Yeah." Rob was like, first of all, nothing this year is that, like nothing is like swirling around you that's so confusing. Even when you have a lot of stuff going on second half, it's not confusing. So it's like he's like, just like be yourself, don't overstudy, which is just inherently who I am.
Uh-huh.
And like, because I want to study, I want to do things like by the book, just
Right.
that's my personality. And he's like, he's like, every time you do that, you fail. Like, you can't do that. So he's just like, think about the past, think about the things that you might want, like bullet points of what you want to say that you weren't able to in time. But other than that, like, don't just overdo it. And I actually agree with him. Don't tell me.
I think that's great advice, and I love that you guys can be a sounding board like that. He can give you a harder truth.
Yeah, he
That's kind of
is for
nice.
sure my balance, for
Good,
sure.
good. And lastly, Crystal, I said at the top of the call, we've done interviews each and every season, and I feel like they've mostly come sort of in toward the middle, kind of at this juncture. And almost every time I ask you, would you do it again? Would you come back? And I feel like now I didn't even think to ask you that question because I feel like the vibes I'm getting from you, the sense I'm getting from you is that you are in a really good place when it comes to the show and what it entails and what it asks of you. But I feel like in past interviews that we've done, I didn't get that. I asked you because it felt like you were more uneasy with it and more questioning it. Is that accurate in terms of like your kind of up and down relationship with the show?
Completely accurate. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, my first 2 years was very, like, I was not sure if it was
Hmm.
right for me or if I was right for it. But it's not that today I sit in this couch like I'm right for it, it's right for me. It's like I'm just more like it allowing it to happen.
Mm.
And that's sort of my POV now of like, again, watching it and re-experiencing it. Like, you just have to like let it go, because at the end of the day, it's entertainment and it's fun. And yes, it is our lives, and it could be quite tough on all of us. And it is, but I signed the, contract. I chose to be here, and I'm just allowing it to happen, and try to find as much joy in it as I can.
Good. Well, it makes me really happy to see you finding more joy in it and I think having more fun with it. And again, I think you bring a lot of great stuff to this show. And so I'm excited to see what this back half of the season has in store for you.
That makes one of us. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. You're so generous to come on so early in the year. And again, I'm looking forward to the rest of this and always love chatting with you.
Thanks, Gibson.
Yeah, of course.
I want to gab.